Hey guys, it's Goosebumps Completionist, and today I'm bringing you a movie review. But it's unorthodox because normally I would probably review something like this on my other channel, Horror FFA. But because this is Arlstein related and because this is affiliated with Fear Street, I feel comfortable enough talking about a rated R horror movie made for adults and I guess young adults on this channel because of that reason. So, of course, there was a new Fear Street movie that dropped this year in 2025. It was written by Matt Palmer and Donald McCleary and also directed by Matt Palmer. And the film in question is Fear Street Prom Queen. Now, this movie, of course, is an adaptation, or I don't know how faithful of an adaptation or how loose of an adaptation it is, but it's an adaptation nonetheless of the Fear Street book, The Prom Queen from 1992. And from what I gather, The Prom Queen seems to be a relatively liked book from the original Fear Street series. And I lament to say that I held off on reading the book before I watched the movie. And the reason why I did that was because in the back of my mind, I thought that if this movie sucks, I can possibly go read the book and appreciate it in a whole different lens than I would have if I read it first and then watched the movie. You get what I'm saying? So I went with watching the movie first. And if you're not familiar with my Fear Street reviews, if I actually make a full on review on the channel, that means one of two things. I either really loved it and I want to talk about it in that way, or I really hated it. And so far, I haven't had to make a video about a Fear Street thing, movie or book, that I hated until now. I'm gonna be upfront. I'm gonna speak my honest truth, y'all. This movie sucked. This movie sucked from start to finish. I hated this thing. It was terrible. I'm shocked that they rolled this out the way they did. I can kind of see the appeal, and we'll get into that shortly. And this movie does remind me of this very niche genre I found in horror, and I've actually collected some over time, and I'll share those with you shortly. But upfront, I'm being upfront. The original producers involved with the trilogy that came before this movie, like 1994, 1978, and 1666, I think that team did a way better job than the new team they brought on for this movie. And I wouldn't be shocked if this kills the Fear Street movies. I looked on Letterboxd earlier, a few hours ago before I got on. The movie was at a 2.4. Within a span of 4 hours, it's gone down zero point 0.3 on Letterboxd to a 2.1 out of 5 stars. Normally, when a brand new movie comes out like that, it's probably going to go up because the average of a 5-star basis is a 3. Normally, it doesn't go down. So that should tell you the trend is looking like that this movie is cooked. It's cooked. And I think that a lot of the middling to negative responses you're going to probably see on the internet about this movie is going to ring true. And it's no different here for me. If you're a fan of this movie, I'm not trying to alienate you. I know that seeing Arlstein properties brought to the big screen, or I guess streaming screen in this case, is really cool. And I really do want to support the Fear Street movies in the franchise moving forward. But if you're going to continuously drop stuff like this, I'm out. I'm out. This movie almost made me tap out on various different things that it does on its own that really pissed me off. But so I guess we should get into it. Before we go any further, because this is a young adult slash adult movie, I'm going to take the kitty gloves off in this review. You might hear some cursing from me. If you're not used to hearing that from me on Goosebumps Completionist, I apologize up front, but this is a more adult oriented review. And you're also going to see in my rating that it might seem a little bit harsher than what I usually rate for Goosebumps things on this channel. That's because Goosebumps gets a 1 point curve for being made for kids. So it's going to seem less brutal with Goosebumps than something that I don't have kitty gloves on with. So, with that being said, let's get into this movie here, or I guess feature length TV episode because that's what it felt like the whole time watching it. So this movie takes place in 1988 in Shadyside, which is the fictional town and the main town of the Fear Street universe. And we saw this town featured in the original trilogy, and this movie is kind of a continuation and adding a story that happened in 1988 at Shadyside High, which is the high school in the town, on prom night. So the main character in the story is named Laurie Granger, and she has a best friend Megan, who I guess is into horror movies and is kind of a tomboy, and I want to say anarchist, but she's very against the establishment, and she's not afraid to speak her mind and mess around with her classmates to get one over on them and just make them look like idiots. And she is a very weird character in this movie, but we'll get into her shortly, and dive more into her. But Lori, she is wanting to run for prom queen, for the prom, and she isn't the type of girl that would normally do this, but she's doing this, I guess, to rectify the reputation of her family, more importantly, her mother. But unfortunately for Lori, she has the odds stacked against her because there's a mean clique of girls called the Wolf Pack, led by this alpha bitch known as Tiffany Falconer. And Tiffany does not want any competition to get in the way of her winning the prom queen title. And this obviously means a lot to her. But Lori, of course, she has to work a job because her mom is a single mom. And when Lori expresses to her mother that she wants to run for prom queen, and she's, I guess, already entered to do so, we see in that point of the movie that Lori's mom is not really too caring about it. She's like, "Oh, you want to be prom queen? I'm telling you, there's not going to be a lot of fulfillment in it anyway. So don't expect to win or anything." So her mom seems kind of weird, and we know that there's some sort of backstory with her involving like town lore, but we don't find that out until a bit deeper in the movie. Well, anyway, going back to Megan for a bit, there's this whole fake out bit in this class led by Tiffany Falconer's father, Mr. Falconer, who's played by Chris Klein, and he is a terrible actor in everything I've ever seen him in. Whether we're talking the American Pie movies, whether it's his performance as Cicada on the Flash TV show, or playing this character in this movie, he's a terrible actor. But he's like a charming, terrible actor. And I guess for this movie being a bad movie and like a cheesy, corny thing, he kind of works in here. So I'll let it slide for a little bit with him. But we see that Megan likes to prank the class with like I guess prosthetics and fake blood and stuff like that, and she fakes cutting off her hand in some weird random way to get everybody scared. And we see that Lori and Megan, after school and preparing for the prom, are talking on the phone because this is the 1980s. They have to use their house phones and whatnot, and we see what their rooms look like and their personalities, I guess, because the movie's trying to introduce these characters and hit the ground running and get you to prom night. We see that Megan is, I guess, kind of into weed, kind of into Lucio Fulci movies, and what have you there. And she might have a deep friendship with Lori and really cares about her and wants her to succeed, but she also feels that Lori might not have a legitimate shot at winning, but they're going to hope for the best, right? So it comes to prom night, or I guess the night before prom. Lori has saved a good amount of money where she works to save up for a prom dress. And there's this guy that happens to be in a relationship with her alpha bitch rival, Tiffany. I forget his name. Who cares really though? And she is hoping that she can have a moment with him at prom, and maybe she'll have a dance with him, and I don't know, maybe speak her true feelings for him. I don't know. And we see that Lori, perhaps in the neighborhood in Shadyside that she lives in, feels like she's always being watched by her neighbors, specifically the Falconers, who live very close by to her. And we see that in the Falconer home, Tiffany's trying on her prom dress, giving a show for her parents, and her parents are on looking and proud. And then Lori, since she has a single mom, her mom just comes home from work and Lori dresses up to go to the prom. She's like, "Oh, I'm off to the prom." The mom's like, "All right, see ya." Okay. And she gives some like ominous, I guess, predication that the prom for her in the past was something negative, and she hopes that it doesn't end up being negative for Lori, I guess. But nonetheless, the characters end up at prom, and then we see this fake out moment with Megan using a fake head of this girl, which I haven't brought up yet, but within like the first 20 minutes, we get a glimpse of what this movie's going to be. It's going to be a slasher movie. If you don't know that up front, just look on Wikipedia for God's sake. Um, we see this girl who's, I guess, played by a popular actress, from what I gather. I don't know her from anything, but cool. She gets off screen killed by this uh, raincoat wearing, but the raincoat's not yellow like it's a red raincoat, and a crappy mask killer. Um, Nonetheless, off screen kills this girl, and we don't see what happens to her. And that's the segue into prom night. And we see that fake out moment with Megan using a prosthetic head of the girl that we just saw die. So we know that there's probably going to be a fake out of a fake out later on with an actual human head, and people are not going to believe it. It's going to be that kind of movie, right? Well, at the same time, there's also these little shots that we see of this killer in his, I guess, lair, like with the 1988 yearbook of the Shady Side High student body, and he's particularly targeting the girls who are running from prom queen in the section of the yearbook, and he's marking the first girl that he just killed off with an X. So you know that the main people being targeted in this movie are rivals or potentially all of the girls running for prom queen. So we know that Lori is going to be in danger. Tiffany's probably going to be in danger, and the rest of the wolf pack that also ran for prom queen is probably going to be in danger. But lo and behold, we have a plot where literally from this point on, just random crap happens for the rest of the movie. There's a immediate jump scare, and I'm not kidding. They try to jump scare the audience with the Rickroll song, and it's like, "Never want to give you up." That's what is blaring loud, and it's the loudest thing played in the whole movie, decibel wise, and it's done so to shock you and make you feel like crap because they pulled a Rickroll on you. And we get to meet some side characters that don't matter diddly squat to the story, like the DJ of the prom and some filler characters that we're going to see later on get killed by these potential killers. And I say killers because at one point it's pretty obvious that there's two working together, and that's as far as I'll go for now on that. But anyways, once the prom starts, we see Tiffany in her alpha bitch persona, along with her ragtag group of friends, or I guess mean bitch army, are dressed up in this American flag get up, like in like swimsuits. And the main principal guy, and I'm not making this up, he looks at these underage girls and goes, "Wowzers." But the bad dialogue doesn't end there because this movie has a ton of it. Once Megan and Lori are overlooking the I guess performance taking place, these other two girls who I guess are friends with Tiffany in some way come over to, I guess, badmouth the girls. And Megan has a mouth on her, and there's a line in the movie. This might be the cringiest dialogue I have seen thus far in Fear Street movies. They're talking about Tiffany and how she's a weirdo, and Megan says something along the lines of, "Oh no, Tiffany's the weirdo. She taught her dog how to lick her blank." But she didn't outright say it, but it's implied it's genitalia. And that point made me stop the film. I'm like, dude, their attempts at humor with this dialogue is absolutely terrible. It is absolutely cringe. Not to mention, there's the vice principal, which I was shocked to see. The principal's name is Breckenridge, and she's played by Lily Taylor. Lily Taylor from Say Anything from 1989, Lily Taylor from The Haunting remake. She's a fantastic actress. And I'm thinking, how in the world do they get Lily Taylor to sign on to this movie? I guess she was an 80s teen at one point, and maybe they thought it would be fun to have an actual star from the 1980s in teen movies in this film. I don't know. Maybe she liked the script. Poor thing. She deserved better. She literally tells the student body, okay, and this should tell you what kind of writing we're dealing with this film. She tells the student body that alcohol and recreational drugs are banned. The entire student body looks at the vice principal of the school and boos her in a ridiculous fashion. What? This part of the movie, once we get introduced to this aspect of the movie, it really sunk into me that this movie didn't really feel like it was made by people. And I don't normally say that argument like, oh, this movie feels like it was written by AI. But I'm kind of convinced that this movie partially was in some aspects, because some of these things are just so overblown and ridiculous that it makes it hard to want to like it. And that's no different from how the characters are written. Going back to Megan, Megan has this running gag for the rest of the movie about how she needs to smoke some weed. And she brings it up like 5 to 10 times until we finally see her meet up with this random dude that we have not met in the story hardly ever and smokes a joint with him. Okay? And then there's like this running gag where you have this like pretty decent soundtrack going on in the movie, but anytime there's like a song change, we'll meet these random kill filler characters that will go wander off in the school, I guess, to try to hook up, or, the first characters that we actually see die on screen in this movie, mind you, don't actually die until like the 31 or 2 minute mark of the film, which is insane in a 90-minute movie. But there's this one girl who is looking for her flyers and wonders what has happened to them. So she brings her boyfriend to this classroom and finds that they've all been vandalized and ripped up and what have you. But the killer in the crappy raincoat and crappy mask comes out with with a weapon and off screen kills her. And we see with CGI blood and guts that fall to the floor that she's been killed by this guy. And then her boyfriend. Now this is where I think the movie does kind of shine a bit, is the practical gore at times. We see this boyfriend character get his hands brutally cut off by this killer, and it's very graphic. And there's even like an over the top, mildly amusing scene of him trying to open a doorknob with no hands, which was brutal. And then the way the killer finishes him off was absolutely savage. And that's probably my favorite part of the whole movie. From there, it doesn't get any better though. But characters start disappearing, and our main cast are very oblivious because who cares about these side characters, right? There's another couple, like a guy with a ponytail and this girl that go down to the basement of the school to hook up, and he tries to give her this necklace that belongs to his mother. We see him get a saw to the face, and that was pretty brutal. Probably my second favorite moment of the movie. And then we see this girl get electrocuted. Cool, I guess. Meanwhile, the student body's just doing random things. Like, literally, in the middle of the movie, there's a random dance-off. Why? And it's all due to a precursor event that happened. And it's when Lori goes out into the hallway, I guess, to get a breather, to collect her thoughts and stuff. And we see even Megan do this. Why are we focusing on this chick? She's not that interesting. She has a run-in with Tiffany and her, bad girl alliance. And Tiffany basically gives us, the audience, the backstory about what happened to Lori's father. I guess when he was a teen, and the implication of what happened to him is implied that Lori's mom probably killed him, but the police never gathered enough evidence to, convict her. So the town is just hasn't respected her all these years because apparently she was like easy in bed, and this guy was from Sunnyvale, the rival town of Shadyside, which is, I guess, a taboo thing to do in Shadyside. You don't hook up with Sunnyvale people. Okay. All right. And Lori, of course, cries in the bathroom, but there's this nice girl that's friends with Tiffany that tries to help her. But then, of course, the nice girl gets killed by this crappy raincoat killer in a semi-CGI but mildly brutal way. And then, like I said, the dance-off happens, and then because of the dance-off, Lori becomes popular all of a sudden. People are like, oh, yeah, Lori, go, Lori, blah, 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 blah. And this catches the attention of Tiffany's boyfriend, who basically breaks up with her in the middle of prom and tries to go to Lori and immediately kiss her and tries to bring her to the auditorium to get her alone, I guess, to hook up. And then we see him get killed in a surprising way by the killer. And this sets off, I guess, the climax of the movie where Lori runs for her life, ends up running into Megan, who's, I guess, done smoking weed and pleading her case high as crap to all the other people in the auditorium that the prom sucks and none of this really matters, or whatever crap she was spewing. And they end up, meeting up together. They find the basement, or I guess the lair part where this killer is hiding the bodies. And they uncover the room with the yearbook and all of that. And then the killer spots them, and they make a really dumb move, especially given that Megan knows horror movies. If you are hiding from a killer and you see them in another room, make sure that when you're going by an open doorway, that they're clear from the area before you continue to move on. But no, they don't do that. They catch the attention of the killer immediately, and they have to run to a window, break it open, and try to escape. It's really stupid, right? And this brings us to the climax of the story, which is very quick, where they end up in the auditorium at prom. And let's just say there's a killer reveal that happens after two teens that we have seen throughout the movie that are really annoying get killed in a very amusing and over the top fashion, with some CGI gore kind of mixed in there and some practical, but they're very brutal nonetheless. And I thought it was amusing. And then we see the pervert principal get his arm cut off and what have you. But we get the killer reveal, and we think the movie's going to end there because usually that's where it ends. But it doesn't end there. There's more to the story, right? So, the killer's arrested. There's certain characters that are, I guess, emotionally affected, and we see that Lori and Tiffany might have this bond after what happens in the climax, and Lori decides to go to Tiffany's house to, keep her give her some company given the events that transpired. But remember when I said that there was two killers at one point? Well, the second killer makes his presence known when the nice girl that was trying to help Lori in the bathroom early on that died by herself. There was a second killer at that point that made themselves known. By the end of the climax, we only know one, so we know there at least is another. And we're waiting for that reveal. Well, when we get to Tiffany's house, we find out who the other killer is, and then there's a recontextualization possibly with another character that you can kind of see coming given the angle of it all. As a matter of fact, if you go all the way back to the beginning of the movie within the first 10 minutes, if you're good at picking up context clues on slasher and whodunit tropes, you can identify the main killer within the first 10 minutes. You can identify the motives within the first 13 minutes. And then once Tiffany gives away the backstory, you can kind of connect them with the second killer that you see, and you can kind of put two and two together on who the second killer is and possibly a potential third. And that plays a role at the end where Lori's face to face with the realizations that she's been brought, and she may or may not come out on top, and then the movie abruptly ends once Lori has wrapped up that situation. So, yeah, that in a nutshell is this movie, Fear Street Prom Queen. Look, I'm going to be upfront. I really don't like anything about this movie other than two specific things. One, the kills, when it's practical gore, is really good. I think they're very creative for the most part, even though they're kind of generically set up in that stereotypical way. But the way they're handled is very cool. And honestly, you could put these kills on a highlight reel, and that's all you really need to come to this movie for. It has that going for it. And the second thing that I weirdly like about it, and I did not mention this in the plot of a review, but there's like this shady side reporter lady that I guess has a cameraman following her. And because the cameraman is in the story, and there's also a person at the prom holding, those old school like video recorders that you put on your shoulder, there's kind of like this footage element to the movie that really reminds me of the OG Scream and even Scream 2 from the 90s. And I don't know if they were trying to rip on that on purpose, and I guess, try to, riff on it or make fun of it. I couldn't tell you. But there's certain aspects to it when it's not, just randomly inserted in the movie that I think looked very well shot for the most part. And accompanied with that, there is a decent atmosphere going for the movie, and the movie does look nice and it's well presented in terms of how it's looked, the color corrections. Some people did complain about how dark the movie got and it was poorly lit in some scenes. I can kind of see that, but I appreciated it for the most part. It had good color correction, a good soundtrack, a good ambiance, and some good gore when it's there. Everything else what left much to be desired. I'm going to start off with the acting performances. Lori herself, the actress who plays her, I don't know her name. I probably don't care to. In like the first half of the movie, this girl has no charisma. She looks like she doesn't want to be there. The way she carries this character is uninteresting, and it makes Lori the most uninteresting character because she looks like she's not giving any sort of effort into the role. So it doesn't help the monotony at all, going through the generic stuff that you expect out of these movies, put on full blast, I guess in more severe ways, because the character is so underwhelmingly performed. And this moves on to, Chris Klein. I already mentioned his performance in this movie is cringy. It's corny, it's campy, but I guess it kind of works here. I just think he's a bad actor. I don't know what else to say. Um, and then all the side characters, like there's these two annoying side characters. Like there's this one guy with like a douchebag haircut from the '80s, and this one girl like blonde chick that's like a mega bitch. They're annoying. They're really annoying. And even Megan is annoying. Megan, she has all this, horror knowledge and stuff, but never uses it. And the only thing that she's really memorable for in this movie is just constantly bringing up weed and making really crass jokes that aren't funny. They aren't funny, and it's not just her making that really weird remark about Tiffany, teaching her dog how to lick her, right? But it's like the principal, like the bald headed pervert guy looking at underage girls and like saying wowzers, and there's this whole scene in the climax where the aftermath and the bloodshed and after the killer's revealed and all that, the principal is just laying there after he got his arm cut off, and somebody thought it would be a funny idea to put his arm in front of him before he dies. Like, what the hell? What am I watching with these characters? It's bad. Like a lot of the direction here is bad. The only thing serviceable here is maybe the alpha bitch's best friend who's nice to Lori at one point. That was probably the most serviceable character interactions of the entire movie until she's wasted off, which was sad. But it is what it is. This movie's crap. But then Lori, surprisingly gets better over time with her character. I guess once the climax wraps up and we get that resolution, she kind of comes more into her own. But then again, it's so rushed through, and there's not enough time with that to make it really salvageable for this movie. And yeah, I don't know what else to say about the characters. The dialogue is bad. The interactions are generic. They're overblown stereotypes, but to like insufferable degrees at points. And the characters that we do see die in the movie, we really have no emotional weight to them because we know nothing about them because they're introduced literally to be killed. I don't know what else to say. I mean, the characters are really weak in this movie, and the acting does not help. Um, I don't know. When it comes to the kills, the cutaway kill, the first kill of the whole movie was annoying. The obvious throwaway fake out with the fake head with Megan just to have another fake out, because I didn't bring it up in the plot review because I kind of already gave it away. But yeah, the expected thing of somebody finding the real head of this chick in the punch bowl, it was just corny. But not that aside, going back to the kills, the CGI is really bad in this movie, and the enhancement on the kills do not look good whatsoever. Um, I don't know what else to say. Like the kills left a lot to be desired when they're not just full on practical, and that's a shame, really, because if you can't really nail that in a slasher movie, you're going to lose your audience, and it lost me at some times, if I'm being honest. But moving on from that, I feel like this movie was just scatterbrained. Like I can't really tell you what the story was. It felt like a hangout movie, but not in like that Dazed and the Confused or Richard Linklater kind of way, where you get to know characters and we get to follow these different characters throughout the movie and their own particular journeys. getting to this, I guess, same conclusion by the end. No, it's not like that. It's literally just all over the place with these characters we give zero craps about. And then the characters we are supposed to care about, we can't care about them because they're not characterizing them. Which it makes it feel like the whole movie, this is a 90-minute movie. It feels like an episode of a TV show where we should know a lot more about these characters before the movie starts. And because we never get to really know anything in significance of how these characters operate or their personality in any significant way, you have no emotional weight to what happens to them. You feel like you care less what happens to them. And it's because, like I said, it feels like an episode to a show and not a movie, right? From the execution, even down to the sudden ending of the film. Like, what is this supposed to be, a stinger ending for a season finale, or is this a movie? What's the point in that? Show us some resolution. Go back to the mama of the story. Go back to Lori. Why not build on it further? You're already 90 minutes in. What's going to hurt to add 10 minutes to a crappy movie? You could possibly save it and make it less crappy. I don't know what else to say. It's not what you expect out of a movie. It doesn't even feel like a movie, right? And that's a shame, man. It's and getting down to the predictability of it. I mean, like I said, you can predict the main killer within the first 10 minutes. That's annoying. You already know that's going to come. When the second killer comes out of the woodwork, and plus with the added backstory that Tiffany provides, it's easy to piece the context clue because you already know who the first killer is going to be. You can easily predict the second one and possibly the involvement of a third. And that actually ends up happening. Everything that you can possibly expect, if you have a brain, within the first 10 minutes this movie provides you, is going to happen. You're just waiting for the inevitable to happen. It's one of those type of movies. There's no intrigue. There's no mystery. You're just waiting for that Scooby-Doo reveal. And I don't think the movie hit that reveal home in a impactful way. And it's a shame. I mentioned earlier in the review, this movie feels like movies that I deem Fear Street like. Like, if you want a good movie to watch, and what I'm referring to, go watch Prom Night 2, Hello Mary Lou. That's basically this movie, just way better. I know it's a ripoff of Carrie, but it's a fun one. If you're going to go a whole horror comedy route like this movie tried to do it like this movie. Don't do it like this piece of crap. This movie felt like this movie, Bring It On, Cheer or Die. This is one of the worst movies I've ever seen in the horror genre. It's terrible from start to finish. It's a sci-fi original movie, mind you. These movies are expected to be terrible. This movie felt to sci-fi original movie tier. It's awful, right? This movie, another one, slightly better though, Killer High. It feels like this. This is kind of Fear Street adjacent. I mean, it's like a high school reunion, but you have a killer boar mascot, killing, I guess, adults, not teens, but they're all dressed up in their high school getup. So why not? Kind of counts. And then you have this modern movie, which I think is probably, looking at them, probably my favorite one next to Prom Night 2, Hello Mary Lou, Bloody Axe Wound. I mean, this movie's brand new. It came out in 2024. I mean, this movie takes place in a fictional town of Clover Falls. I mean, you can put the parallels on to Shady Side. The plot features teenagers. It feels like a Fear Street book from start to finish. I mean, go watch this. Why are you wasting your time watching an official Fear Street movie when you have higher expectations when it sucks, right? And that's the most damning thing about this film. The original trilogy, even with its faults, had a cohesive story. For the most part, had decent acting. It had some good kills pretty much throughout the entirety of it. There was some CGI enhancement at times, but for better or for worse, it looked a whole lot better than this film did at times. But I will say this film's gore did push the envelope a bit further than the other films. But, the monsters, or I guess the villains of the original trilogy, had some sort of aura and threat level. The villain in this movie, how can you take this guy seriously? I mean, the villains from the original trilogy, Trick or Treat Studios made masks, right? How are you going to make a mask out of a guy wearing a red raincoat and a crappy, generic looking metal looking mask? I mean, it looks like crap. The villain looks not threatening. It looks silly. I don't get it, right? just add that to the list of other things that this movie fucked up. This movie is just absolutely horrid. I mean, I don't know what else to say. I would never rewatch this movie probably. If I do rewatch anything from it, I'm probably gonna go on YouTube and watch the kills and the kill count videos that people make of this. But other than that, this was a complete dumpster fire. I hope and pray that if you're out there watching producers of the Fear Street show, movies, or potential future show or something, listen to fans. Adapt Trapped, the book verbatim. That is the best Fear Street book. It's probably going to be the scariest thing you're going to get out of Fear Street, and it's going to be pretty original for what horror is currently offering. And I think people would really like that one. But if you want to go back to basics and you want to make something more impactful, something very story heavy, with some schlock and some kill potential that you're obviously really good at, pick Scream Jennifer Scream. That movie was going to be turned into a Fear Street movie back in the 90s. Go back to that. that movie probably would have been good back then. You could probably make it good now. You know, those two I think would be the biggest recommendations for me. I know there's a lot of good Fear Street books out there as well. I know, like the Silent Night trilogy, people really want that turned into its own thing. What is it, Rava Dalby? I know she's a very divisive and hated character, but still, you can work with that if you want to. Or the Cheerleader series. Do something that actually represents Fear Street in a good way. This movie, I don't think reflects the best qualities about Fear Street. You know, Fear Street, it's young adult trash, but it's entertaining. It's mostly well written for the most part, like I said. But it's most of the time fun. This movie, it tries to be fun, but you have the aims for that in the wrong areas. And you put a lot of emphasis on joke humor that just does not land. It's very cringy. You have these characters that are very one note or half baked, and they're not fully realized. You have this half baked story that's hardly fleshed out, and it almost comes across like there's no story and just random stuff is happening. Stay focused. Why are you putting out crap like this just to have 80s nostalgia and 80s glam on it to try to sell it and market it like it's a nostalgia product? It's not what fans want, but you're in the right trajectory at least. You know, Fear Street is an 80s and 90s property. Maybe you should aim for that, but stay focused, right? Pick the stories that are legitimate. Pick the stories that are worth telling in the series, that are actually horror and not something generic like this piece of crap. I don't know. I haven't read the book. I'm hoping it's better, but for this movie, for an adult rating basis, I'm going to give it from a 0 to 5 star basis a 1.5 out of 5 stars. This is a piece of crap. This is a really bad movie. Bad movie. That's just my take. You can disagree all you want. That's just how I feel. And I'm going to leave it there. So yeah, that's my thoughts on Fear Street Prom Queen. Let me know down in the comment section if you've seen this movie. What's your thoughts on it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Are you indifferent on it? What Fear Street stories would you like to see adapted in the future of these Fear Street films? I'm dying to know. And I'll see you next time.